Greetings, programmers, busted thumbs. Back again. We're doing our Music Player Studio project, and we're up to episode 15 now. And we were in a great place with episode 14. We were playing Twinkle Twinkle Little Star all the way through. Everything was synchronized. Everything was wonderful. Except, of course, that music gets a little more complicated than Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. And so we have a few things that we still need to work out. If you may have noticed that in between now and then I made a couple little changes. I changed the play button to actually look like a play button instead of a piano, and I've added in 2 more songs. So if I hit play on this guy and make him bigger, you'll see that I now have Twinkle Twinkle Little Star. I have one that I created from some piano music that Bach wrote. It's called Musette, and I have a little test song as well. I'm not quite done with this one. It's just kind of the very beginning, but it gives us something that's a little bit faster that we can play with. Let me play it for you really quickly here. All right, so there's that one, and our test one is actually quite simple. It just plays four sounds on an octave. There's a left hand and then there's a right hand playing those 4 notes. It's just C, D, E, F, just like that. And so it's pretty simple for us to work with. But what I wanted to show you is that we do have a little bit of a problem. If you look here, here's the right hand, it's playing 4 notes, and here's the left hand, it's playing 4 notes. Let's say I didn't have the left hand in there, but I did have it as an instrument. Or maybe I just had one note. I'll make it 1 note. That'll even better show what's going on here. If I do 1, 1, 48, 1, which is the first note that was in there, and then I go ahead and I hit play on this guy, go to the test song, hit play, I don't get anything. Nothing played. Oh, whoops, we have a little bit of a problem. Of course, nothing played. It should be left hand. Let's get it right this time. It only played one note, which is what you would expect out of the left hand, but you would expect that the right hand would keep going. But it's not doing that. It's blocking everything when we don't get that one done. And so that's a problem we have. The other problem we have is I noticed as I was working on these, I was testing them out. When I got to the end of the song, it was really slow for me to edit because if I didn't press the stop button, it was still sitting there trying to keep play the song even when the song is over. So the first thing we really ought to do is check to see when our song's done playing. We need to keep track of that. I think the best way to do that is to have another variable just like we have with playing players count that we're using for the measure. I think we can have another one just like that for the entire song and not just measure. So where playing players is right now, I think I might rename this to playing measures count. And that should change it everywhere that it was. All the variables and all the drop downs that had playing players is now playing measures. I'm going to create another variable now, again for all sprites. And I'm going to play playing music count. This is for the entire thing. This is not just for that one measure, but for the entire thing. So playing measures count is set to 0, so we should change that here as well. Playing measure and playing song, playing music should be set to 0 there. Did I do that anywhere else? Did I just set it there? Okay. Okay. So what I'm going to do here then is I'm going to make all the ones that are playing real music, which is not this guy's just the resting one. We're not going to be too concerned about him. But I want to keep track of the fact that we have all of our we have people still playing the actual music itself. Okay. So that means that what we need to do is change here before we get into the repeat for these guys who are actual players. Oops, I double click that. Playing music count, we're going to change that by 1. So that means the real player clones the guys other than this guy just playing rests, is going to increase that one until we're all done. And the way we know that we're all done is that after we read a next note, if it's still equal to 0, then we've got a problem. Then we're at the end. If we read the next note, it was 0, and after reading it, we still have 0. We should be at the end. And I will make sure that that's the case. If it's not the case, I will make sure that it's the case, if we're not getting zeros back when we read the next note. Okay, so basically anytime we check for the next note, we should check to see if it's still 0. If the next note is still 0, then that's the case where we're at the point where we should be changing. Sorry, what we should do is change by -1. That means this guy is no longer playing music. And the same thing can happen here where we read the note. If we read the next note and it's 0, then this guy's no longer reading music. And we should probably actually really keep track of that, whether we're playing music or not. So in here, well, for now, let's leave it here. So what's going to happen here is that by the time they all get done, the playing music count should be set to 0. So this one thing that this guy can keep a track of as well. So down here, he can check that if actually we can even check that right here. Check it right there. If our playing data, if our playing music count is equal to 0, then we can set is playing music to false. Is music playing to false? Yep. Why is that not? Is it running? Oh, I see. I was typing into the wrong one. And if it's false, we might as well just start over. So I really could have done with an if then else here. And put these guys inside the else category. Because what this will cause to happen is that if we set this to false, this will immediately get back into this repeat, find out that it's false, and it will stop. And these guys, when they'll get into their repeat going through, they'll find out that we're not playing music anymore, and they'll stop. So that's good. That means that these guys are now tracking towards the end of a song, and we shouldn't get into that kind of problem we had where it was getting very slow because it was just sitting there looping and looping around again. If I didn't hit stop, we should just be able to work with it. I don't know though that fixes the problem that we had with the test music when we had just one in here. If we go to test, oh, it's not playing at all. Let me make sure I didn't break something. Oh, I did. Okay. Well, now that's something I should have checked, that I didn't break it, and apparently I did. So let's go ahead and check why it would have been broken. So let's go ahead and show our is music playing when we do this. That never became true, or at least it came off so fast. It probably, okay, so we set it to true here. Is music playing is true. We broadcast this. We come into here, We start track current measure, and it should be true at this point. And the way it could become false, if playing music count hadn't been set yet, which it hadn't. So it will immediately, so the playing music count needs to go up before we go into tracking the current measure, and it hasn't done that yet. So it's very possible that this guy can get launched off before this guy changes his playing music count by 1. So we can do that a different way. One way we can do that is make sure it's at least 1. And then make sure we decrement it. We'll let him play at least 1 measure before he actually decreases it. Playing music count. Let's see if that fixes the problem. Good. Now, did I explain that well enough to so you understand why that was a problem? The problem was that we were checking this playing music count being equal to 0, and it was 0 when it came in through here, unless one of these guys was quick enough to beat coming. The guy whose music instrument is 0, who's the one who's not a clone of a music player, will come in and check this thing, and it's quite possible that it checks this condition right here of playing music count equals 0 before one of the other clones has actually increased it. So what we did is we made sure that everybody increases it ahead of time, and then they only decrease it when they're all done, and we made sure that the one that's always playing a rest plays 1 measure first before decreasing its count by 1, and that's what allowed that to happen. Okay, so we're back to the state where it works. Let me go ahead now and test that test music to see if that's problem still occurring. Go into test. Yeah, so we still have the problem even here where our music, oops, sorry, I made that bigger. Our music will get blocked if it doesn't find a note to play. And we're a little low on time, but let's see if I can still at least get to part of why that problem is happening. When it comes down here and reads the next note, I think this is the problem. It's trying to read to the next comma and not finding one. And so it's getting stuck trying to read the next note. So what we're going to have to do is fix read the next note so that when it needs to read to a value and it gets to the end, it's going to come back with some sort of default value instead. If we do that and we make it come back with a 0, then things should be all right. Because it will just know that it doesn't need to block here, it needs to stop playing. So that's the thing that we'll work on the next time we get back together on these episodes. There's going to be a little while of this, we're going to be kind of tweaking things to make it what I call robust, to make it be able to work with data that isn't necessarily always the easiest data, the most perfectly formed data that you can work with. It'll start working with data that does funny things like skips notes and has notes spreading over measures and things like that. It's going to take us a little while to get through all of that, but it will make the player a whole lot more sophisticated and be able to play different things. So it's all good. This is the kind of thing that is important for a programmer to do, is to be able to handle whatever gets passed his or her way. And even better is if you can test it and make sure it tells you whether that data is correct or not. But we should be able to work at least with things that are still well-formed. They're well-formed pieces of music that are real pieces of music. We should be able to let them be able to play. All right, so we'll keep working on that, and I'll see you the next time around to help make our program more and more a better player. I look forward to it. I hope you do too. We'll see you then. Bye.